then took guidance discussed during that meeting, and they expanded a recommendation, which is recommendation 12, which takes all of what you see highlighted from recommendation 11, but then adds promote telehealth for MAC, considering the modifications that have been made under the emergency policies, which you can also see in recommendation 11, embedded in that recommendation. So these recommendations are really duplicative of each other, and just are organized in a slightly different approach. So we can proceed with that, and I can move to the next issue to raise, or we can resolve this in the PowerPoint. And I see that Ms. Lee has her hand raised. So Ms. Lee. Madam Chair, would you recognize Ms. Lee?
Thank you. Ms. Lee, go ahead and you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lisa Lee for the record. So looking at this, I'm a little confused at how MAT or MOUD, medications for opioid use disorder, MAT medications is medication assisted treatment, supports harm reduction. When we conceive of MAT or MOUD, it's often thought about as treatment or recovery, right? We have medication assisted recovery, which is a recognized recovery path. And so I'm a little confused as to how that aligns with harm reduction strategies. And if anybody has any clarification around that, that's very confusing terminology for me. Thank you.
Dr. Dixon, Dr. Leslie Dixon.
Well, I guess I really consider MAT or MOUD as harm reduction. I think harm reduction is a whole lot of different things, a lot of approaches to taking care of people who are using opioids. And so harm reduction means we're putting them into a safer situation by using safer medications.
Thanks, Dr. Dixon. Ms. Lee, does that answer your immediate question?
Thank you, Dr. Dixon, for your perspective. As a person in recovery who methadone was a part of my recovery, and as somebody who's a recovery advocate and harm reduction advocate, both in the recovery community, we do conceive of this as medication-assisted recovery, which I do see as different than, say, a syringe services program or, wound care outreach program that is addressing some of the harms associated with substance use disorder or opioid use disorder. I don't know, I guess I just have categorized it differently, and it's well supported in the literature is also being two distinct sort of strategies. So hence my confusion, and thank you for your comment, Dr. Dixon.
Great, thank you, Ms. Lee. Recognizing Ms. Marshall's earlier comment, my understanding and in my read through these is that aside from the support harm reduction section, they're relatively duplicative. And so it seems that the group would just could select to move to keep one of these in our recommendations, since they do provide some duplication at this time. Ms. Lee, given your comments, perhaps the one that we opt to keep is recommendation number 11, as it stands alone in that capacity, and then move to strike recommendation 12, keeping the section on support harm reduction through. If there are additional items under that section that are connected to harm reduction, and maybe Ms. Marshall can help explain that piece. So I just wanted to say that before I take any additional comments. Ms. Marshall, are you able to clarify if there are other harm reduction initiatives?
So there, Kelly Marshall for the record. So there are, and
Okay.
The way that prevention recommendation was listed was as A through C. And this was item C of A through C. So what I would suggest is that in the worksheet, you can see that 11 here is the 11 that we just reviewed. And then 12 is part of a larger package, which was, if you went all the way back up to the executive summary in the report, they were listed by treatment and recovery, prevention and response. And so this is just prevention 8C. It would not be doing anything to 8A or 8D that appear as 8A or 8B that appear as separate recommendations, if that clarifies.
Perfect. That does clarify. Thank you. Debbie, you are recognized for additional comments.
Yeah, I just had a quick point of reference. The harm reduction, and just as the doctor pointed out, it is medical assisted treatment is necessary, and it is considered in the world I'm seeing harm reduction, because we're preventing them from further harming themselves by giving them the medicine that they do need. And if we're going to get rid of 12, then perhaps we can expand upon 11 to add the tele support services and the different services, combine the two. But absolutely, I think Matt is a harm reduction, just like Narcan. I mean, we're not curing them, but we're stopping or preventing deaths. So I'm sorry, that's
Madam Chair, Kelly Marshall for the record, just as a point of clarification, including the use and promotion of telehealth with the specific language that's provided in 12 is in recommendation 11. It's just in the middle of the recommendation.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Marshall. Ms. Lee, any further discussion on this item?
Yes, sorry, Madam Chair, trying to find my unmute button. In looking at item 11 and item 12, looking at the justification, action steps, and research links, I would say that the item 11 that was submitted has fully fleshed out justification, action steps, and research links to support that recommendation. Whereas looking at number 12 is missing some of those pieces. And also it asks to investigate whether MAT can be delivered via telehealth for the public health emergency. SAMHSA came out with new guidelines. Just yesterday, anybody on the SAPTA distribution list was sent that information. And so I think that, you know, again, this terrain changes constantly, right? And so I do want to be mindful of those changes at the federal level. And so I would move to adopt number 11, if you are entertaining a motion, for its completeness, in incorporating sort of, you know, things that justify the recommendation, action steps to proceed forward, and the research links which support the emergency department buprenorphine induction.
Great, thank you. I'm not quite yet entertaining a motion, but I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the thinking through and discussion on this item. I want to give Shayla Holmes the microphone for her comments. Shayla?
Thank you, Shayla Holmes, for the record. I would say that we know that Matt is important. We know that these pieces are critical, and we're making the recommendation. And I would say that it fits much better. Again, from somebody, considering the folks of whom this report is targeting, it fits much better from my perspective within the service coordination piece. And number 11 fully, as Lisa Lee has previously identified, fully provides all of that background information. So I would support number 11 over number 12 myself as well. And I think either one meets what we want it to do. And I think 11 just fits better.
Terrific. Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Any further discussion on this item?
Madam
All
Chair,
right.
Kathleen Marshall.
Oh, go ahead.
For a point
Go
of
ahead, Ms. Marshall.
clarification. Just a note that under the action step, as currently written, you see bullet point 1. This was drafted last week, and then of course SEMSA provided their preliminary rules, right? They haven't been adopted, but they are being proposed. So the part of the report that would say needs more investigation on public health emergency, based on what Ms. Lee said, you may want to pull that out. Just what's in parentheses after action step bullet point 1.
Terrific. So if I'm hearing you correctly, amending the section in parentheses on action step bullet point 1 if number 11 is moving forward.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item? All right. Seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to retain recommendation number 11, omitting action step bullet point 1, the section in parentheses that says needs more investigation on public health emergency, and remove recommendation number 12 as it's to reduce the duplicativeness of the report. How'd I do?
Good. Lisa Lee, for the record, I so move.
All right. So we have motion by Lisa Lee. I'll entertain a second.
This is Eric. I'll second.
A second by Eric. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition? All opposed? All right. Any abstentions? All right. We will move forward, omitting, retaining 11 and omitting 12. Ms. Marshall, back to you.
Thank you, Kelly Marshall, for the record. So under workforce development, which is page 23 of the draft report, again, at the October SURG working group meeting, 2 recommendations were described. These recommendations both correspond to AB 374, section 10, subsection 1, paragraph Q. Recommendation number 17 is to implement changes to recruitment, retention, and compensation of health and behavioral health care workers and enhance compensation in alignment with the Commission on Behavioral Health Board's letter to the governor of June 22nd. Additionally, continue to sustain and expand investment in community health workers, peer recovery support specialists, and certified prevention specialists by implementing changes to recruitment, retention, and compensation. This was originally a treatment and recovery recommendation that was then revised at their most recent working or subcommittee meeting. Back in October, recommendation 16, which was prevention's number 1 recommendation, was to continue to sustain and expand investment in community health workers, peer recovery specialists, and certified prevention specialists throughout Nevada. So initially it was thought that potentially these 2 could be integrated. They have been integrated into recommendation 17, which then begs the question of whether we need recommendation 16. Or if we retain recommendation 16, then we would need to revise recommendation 17 to reduce that duplicative statement.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. I'll entertain a discussion on recommendations 16 and 17 at this time. Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Eric Schoen. So as a member of the prevention subcommittee, this is a really, really important priority. So I appreciate that we have a chance to entertain this. And as a member of that subcommittee, I really like this additional specification and recommendation 17. I think that's an improvement over what we had for number 16. And if we were to adopt number 17, what I would hope in the parentheses part where it says treatment recovery number 4, we would also include prevention number 1 to highlight that this came up in 2 committees and was important for both committees. I know I've said this before, but I really think if we're going to have any semblance of the capacity that we think we need, that we know we need to get in front of both mental health as well as SUD and OUD, we have to develop these paraprofessionals throughout the entire state. So yes, super important. I think 17 hits the mark.
Thank you for discussion, Mr. Schoen. Next on my list is Lisa Lee. You've been recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lisa Lee for the record. Again, in looking at supporting evidence for item 16, recommendation 16 and recommendation 17, I would like to point out that 17 again has more fully fleshed out justifications, action steps, and research links. It only has one additional research link, I believe. However, I feel like the action steps are really paramount to moving this initiative forward. And so I just wanted to draw attention to those additional pieces that support 17.
Great, thank you, Ms. Lee. Any additional discussion on 16 and 17? All right, seeing and hearing none, at this time, based on Mr. Schoen's comments, I would entertain a motion to retain recommendation number 17, adding in the in addition to the treatment and recovery recommendation number 4, that this is also prevention recommendation number 1 for that reflection.
So
I
moved.
second
And
that.
omitting item number 16. Sorry.
That's all right. Debbie, do you want the first?
I'll second it. I thought we were voting that you had voted for that, but I agree with you wholeheartedly.
So
about number
Madam
17.
Chair, I will support your motion.
All right, I hear a motion on the floor from Mr. Schoen. Do I have a second?
I second Debbie Nadler for the record.
Terrific. A second from Debbie Nadler. All in favor, say aye.
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 Terrific. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Terrific. That recommendation passes. So we'll omit 16 and add in prevention number 1 to 17. Thank you. Ms. Marshall, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kelly Marshall for the record. So now at this point, what we were hoping is that all of the SURG committee members had reviewed that section of the report and all of the recommendations. And if there were any other items that they wanted to raise and pull for discussion before we approve the bucket of all of the recommendations in the worksheet, that they would so do now, or do so now, excuse me, by referencing it by number, with the understanding that recommendation 11, 12, 16, and 17 are now off the table because you've already made motions related to them.
Terrific. Thank you. So before I turn this over for discussion, we will have time to go really in depth as to reasons. So I think if folks are wanting to table some items, just denoting what those ones are, those numbers are, would be helpful. And then we can move to approve the rest of the report. So any discussions from the group, I will entertain now. Ms. Lee, you've been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Lisa Lee for the record. Well, I've been just dying to do this. Recommendation number 1, I would really love to have that pulled for discussion. In addition, the research links are actually, except for 1, so 2 out of 3 of those say that this is a bad idea. I'd like to point out that the first research link, I just want to read a quote from that. It says, evidence abounds that such policies are ineffective. For instance, one 2018 analysis from Pew found harsher penalties for drug possession did not reduce use or overdoses, and a 2014 National Research Council report found that increases in successfully prosecuted drug crimes did not clearly drive down drug use, and had a disparate impact on Black and Hispanic communities. Additionally, the third research link also points to the ineffectiveness of using a hammer to solve a hope crisis. And what I mean by that is using this criminal justice lever that has been ineffective at reducing death and drug-related harms, and has resulted in a disproportionate number of Black and Brown folks in mass incarceration. So looking at those approaches for addressing the challenges associated with fentanyl, again, that third link, I would like to point out that they talk about some suggestions, including reducing restrictions on methadone and buprenorphine, and as we know, SAMHSA is also looking at revising those things, decriminalization of drug possession, implementing novel treatments, provide access to drug content testing, which many of us have discussed, improve supply disruption, and supervised consumption sites, among others. So I just wanted to state that 2 out of the 3 links are actually in opposite recommendation, and I think this warrants further discussion. Thank you for your time today.
Great, thank you, Ms. Lee. So I'm hearing further discussion for number 1. Are there aside from number 1, are there other recommendations that the committee wishes for further discussion at this time? I'll give a few extra moments here in case. All right, Christine Payson, you've been recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Christine Payson for the record. With all respect for Lisa Lee's comments, at the end of the day, there are people in the public that want to see people held accountable. And even if data shows it doesn't reduce overdoses, they want the people who are profiting from peddling this poison that's killing people held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Payson. So it does sound like we will need further discussion on item number 1. So at this time, I'm asking the committee if there are any additional items aside from number 1 that we'd like to table for further discussion. Debbie, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just making a comment on 1, but since we're going to discuss it, I'm not going to. I just wanted to remind everybody that the state of Nevada has a drug induced homicide law in our state that has to do with dealing with drugs. So I just want to mention that I think there's already some laws set in place. And is this trying to change the laws that are already set in place? This number 1.
Great, thank you for your comments, Debbie. I hope that when we discuss this, hopefully momentarily, you'll be able to raise these again and we can have some more discussion here. So at this time, I haven't heard any additional numbers be indicated for further discussion for the group. So I'll give folks 1 more minute if, as we're identifying these other recommendations for discussion. Sounds like that'll be our task for the day. All right. Oh, Ms. Lee, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lisa Lee for the record. In addition, I just want to say, wow, y'all. These subcommittees really put forth a lot of really thoughtful recommendations, and I just want to recognize everybody. And, I mean, we're not sitting in all of the subcommittees, so we can only see kind of what's in our purview. But I am just really astounded by by the recommendations put forth. And I just want to give you all kudos for putting forth such thoughtful recommendations for our state. So thank you, everybody. Give yourself a hand. You did really well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lee, for that discussion item. I hope that that moves forward as we entertain our motion here. So at this time, and I may need a little help with this from staff since we already approved some of these recommendations, I would entertain a motion to approve the SURG draft recommendations, holding number 1 aside for sorry, Kelly has a language for me. Let me try again. At this time, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the recommendations that we have not highlighted for additional discussion.
Hi, this is Chelsea. I motion to approve the recommendations that are not highlighted for discussion.
All right, a motion from Ms. Cheatham. Do I have any seconds?
Second.
A second from Assemblywoman Thomas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed?
Nay.
Unopposed? And any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. So thank you all. I echo Ms. Lee's comments from before. We're not quite done with number 9 yet because we'll discuss through number 1 now, since that was the one highlighted item that we wanted to discuss some more. So we've already had a few initial discussion points on number 1. Which is revised penalties based on the quantity of fentanyl, analogs, and other synthetic drugs of high potency that are trafficked. So at this time, I'll entertain additional discussion around number 1 to see if we can move this one forward. All right, Debbie Nadler, the floor is yours.
Okay, so if I'm reading this correctly, are we on item number 1, we're revising the quantity of fentanyl in which we prosecute people? Are we trying? I'm so sorry. It's something called grief brain and it happens at this time. So I'm sorry, my thoughts sound scattered. Is this justification? Are we trying to reduce the amount of offense by raising the amount that is in place now of what is on what puts somebody in jail? Like now, I'm sorry, like right now, there's a certain amount that they have to have or a certain amount of times before they can be sentenced. Is this lowering it?
Thank you for your question, Ms. Nadler. Is there a committee member who is able to answer that question for Ms. Nadler?
Madam Chair, Christine Payson for the record.
Yeah, you've been recognized.
No, this is not lowering it. It's trying to get it back to the previous penalties that were in place before the last legislative session lowered them. And penalties were lowered for all drugs, but this is looking at fentanyl specifically because of its deadly nature.
Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Payson. Debbie, did that answer your question?
Yeah, so that I'm understanding correctly. So it's fentanyl, what is the number? Like, is it a one-time offense? Is it a 2-time offense? Or can they be prosecuted for the first time that they're caught in selling fentanyl?
Thank you for your question. Is there I don't see anything included in here regarding prosecution. I didn't know if anyone from the response committee could speak to Debbie's question. But Ms. Payson, is this a question you can answer?
I believe I can, at least to a degree. Christine Payson.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly, how the prosecutions go forward don't always match up with exactly the way the law is written, and that's up to the prosecuting attorneys and plea deals that take place. But I would clarify that the numbers that are in the notes there are what were first proposed, but when the law went through, it actually reads that everything from 100 grams to 400 grams is considered low-level trafficking. And that from 400 grams and up is considered high-level trafficking. So they did away with the mid-grade and 400 grams being high level. But if you had 399 grams, then you're just a low-level trafficker with much lower penalties. And that 1 gram difference, that still can kill an awful lot of folks.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. And I guess my whole issue is there's a really fine line between people who are suffering from substance use, who are doing runs to get their drugs and have no clue that they're selling fentanyl, have no clue whatsoever. They could be with another person and that one person lives, the other person doesn't live. It's such a fine line with that. I don't know. My thoughts are all over the place. All I know is I lost my cousin to 1 dose of fentanyl last year. And the guy had been let out many times prior. And he was already, released out of jail 3 times for selling. And because he was released, my cousin was killed. So I guess when we're talking about, if we're talking about fentanyl only, I think all fentanyl dealing is a crime. That's my opinion.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Nadler, and sharing your story. We really appreciate it. We have a comment in the room, and then from Assemblywoman Thomas, and then I'll go to Lisa Lee online. Assemblywoman Thomas, you've been recognized.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. My question actually has to deal with the recommendation for basically punishment. Was there any in the group, were there any experts that looked at what was potentially sent out as a recommendation for the 1 to 4 years, the 1 to 10 years, the 2 to 15 years? Did you have expert data that justified this? And who will present this to the legislators, saying that you want to go back into NRS and amend what they approved in, I believe, was 2019? Was it 2019?
2019.
Yeah, it's 2019. Great. Thank you. Is there anyone from the response subcommittee on the line that can address Assemblywoman Thomas's question about the years for punishment?
I just want to
go ahead.
Point of order. I just want to understand that if, did they pull these numbers as a group and said, this is what we want to recommend? Or did they have expert analysis of what it should be? Because I did hear someone say that this is the way it was prior to 2019. And I just want to know if that's what they went by, and are they going back to that?
So to clarify your question, if the grams that are indicated here and the years reflect the prior legislation or sort of some expert recommendation of the committee?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
terrific.
that.
Is there anyone on the line from the response subcommittee that can address Assemblywoman Thomas's question? Christine Payson, you've been recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Christine Payson for the record. So those numbers showing that less than 14 grams is a deferral, that's the new law. The prior law was less than 4 grams was low-level trafficking. So it's recognizing the way it reads now and the way it did read. We as response committee did not make specific recommendations about what the new revised penalty would be, because there is at least one, and I believe several bill draft requests in process that are going to be submitted. So we wanted as a response committee to say we agree with revising them and increasing them, but we didn't give any specific numbers based on any data or any opinion. We just want to show that we recommend that that bill needs to be revised.
Thank you for the clarification, Ms. Payson. So if I'm understanding correctly, the section under the justification was added from the response subcommittee at a later date? The second bullet point under justification?
This is Shayla Holmes. I was on the response committee. May I respond?
Yes, you've been recognized, Ms. Holmes.
Thank you. Shayla Holmes for the record. The information that you see here on that bullet point was provided in a presentation as what the law was prior, but our recommendation was not to necessarily revert back to those prior amounts, but that there needed to be increased penalty for fentanyl analogs or other synthetic drugs. That was the language of which we heavily focused on, because those were the pieces of which we are starting to see or seeing for some time now, unfortunately, the greater deaths and the greater impact or possibility for deaths within that grouping of drug classification. So what's here is what was presented to us as previous law, although we didn't debate, recommend, or make any decision as far as the recommendation specifically to go back to that, but that we needed to see an increase in penalty for that grouping of drugs. And it was heavily supported by law enforcement that participated within those presentations to us.
Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Holmes. Assemblywoman Thomas, does that help answer your question?
Sort of. I just want to know, the experts were just police, or there judiciary or judicial experts in here? Who were the people that actually, because, when this goes before your legislators, I want to make sure that this has some kind of foundation that you can rely on, because I don't see, them changing, and I might be wrong. I don't see the change from 2019 to revert back to a prior, that's the reason why they changed it, so I just want to make sure that we're clear who gave the recommendations, who were the experts, and if perhaps you can reconsider looking at that as far as your recommendations, so that you have a foundation to present before legislators.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Thomas. Ms. Holmes, did you raise your hand to respond to the types of presenters, or did you have a separate comment?
The types of presenters. So and it's unfortunate that Dr. Woodard is unable to be with us. I do believe in one of the meetings, she did mention going back and getting some legal advice. But I do believe that there was also pharmaceutical board members, not that officially presented to the committee, but that were consulted in regards to the language. Because again, we didn't make the recommendation within bullet point 2. It was just utilized as this is what it was prior. And we were really more focused on the fentanyl analogs and other synthetic drugs language. And so I believe pharmaceutical experts were consulted in regards to how we can go about making sure that that wording was correct.
Great. Thank you so much for your comments. On my list, I have Lisa Lee, Assemblywoman Hardy, and then Dr. Dixon in the room. So Ms. Lee, you've been waiting for a moment. The floor is yours. You can recognize.
Thank you so much. Lisa Lee for the record. I have a couple of points to make. The first is this is a well-researched topic. I think I've sent out a report before that highlighted some of those points on research in this area, that most drug sales are happening between people who use drugs. And also people supplying, especially with heroin, you're thinking about, you don't want your friends to be dope sick. Again, a ton of research in this area, not just in public health, but also anthropology. There's been longitudinal studies on this. Philippe Bourgois calls it the moral economy of sharing, which I think sums up exactly what I experienced as heroin was my drug of choice. I will also say that fentanyl test strips are pretty much useless for the current illicit supply. That testing for the presence or absence of fentanyl does little to modify behavior or decrease risk when most illicit substances have come into contact with fentanyl in the processing, packaging, or distribution process. There are ample studies that identify paper spray or Raman handheld mass spectrometry as a cost-effective drug checking strategy that can be offered in harm reduction organizations. And I point that out because your average person who uses drugs does not know what is in the drugs. They have no way to tell what is in the drugs. Law enforcement can do that because they have laboratories that can see exactly what's in the substances. But the people who are trying to stay alive, people are not trying to die. They're trying to stay alive, and they're really lacking the tools needed to even know what is in the drugs. So I say this because your average person that's probably furnishing small amounts of these drugs, which might be within the parameters of what is being proposed here, right? I mean, I did 3 grams a day. That was my personal. I didn't sell any of that. That's what I needed to keep me functional. So thinking about this, people don't know what is in their supply. And I will tell you, as a person who works with people who use drugs on a daily level, I hear things like, I'm just trying to see if there's any more heroin in the fentanyl supply. People are not wanting to do that. I've got a comment here. It says, I ask myself what happens when all the black dries up, meaning black tar heroin, just like real pain pills did. Overdose rates are going to spike when the last of them move over to the dark side, meaning when there's only fentanyl in the system. And so I just want to say, from the average person who has addiction or dependence to opioids, they don't know what is in the drugs, right? We're all trying to keep our friends alive, whether we're in recovery or people who use drugs. And so I just want to say that, most of the folks that are going to end up imprisoned for these things, which again, like life after prison, reentry, all of that, now you have this drug felony and you can't access housing. You really are, like, all of these options to improve your life are foreclosed. And does it really undo some of the harm that we're looking to do? Does it really meet our intention? Knowing what we know about the people that will most likely be incarcerated for these things. So just wanted to point out a few things. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lee, for your comments and sharing some of your personal experience in addition to the evidence. Appreciate that. Assemblywoman Hardy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So most of this meeting, I'm just trying to absorb everything, and all of the work that you have done on this task force is really amazing. And so, like I said, it's an honor to be able to be a part of this going forward. So I'm just trying to absorb everything, and thank you all for your hard work. I just wanted to point out one thing in this discussion about, revisiting the penalties. And it does say on the action item there that Senator Severs, Ganser, and Attorney General Ford have the BDRs that will address the penalties. And so I think that, that's as it goes through the legislative process, that's where we'll see whatever evidence or presenters, reports, and things like that, that we can vet to kind of answer Assemblywoman Thomas's question. That's where we'll see it. And like this task force isn't recommending any penalties, but we will be able to see what is being proposed through those BDRs. So I just wanted to point that out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman Hardy. Dr. Dixon, did you still have an additional comment from the room?
Yes, Dr. Dixon for the record. In kind of regards to something that Assemblywoman Thomas said, I have to say I can't figure out what this is referring to. 14 grams of what? What, I mean, are we talking heroin, cocaine, speed, marijuana? Obviously not marijuana, but it's meaningless right now. I find this little table, and it's like I don't even know what they're talking about. And then we're comparing that to 2 milligrams of fentanyl. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. So this needs to be rewritten to make sense to people who. And I'm supposedly an expert in this field, and I don't know what's going on here. So
thank you for your question, Dr. Dixon. Is there anyone from the response committee who can help provide clarification to Dr. Dixon's question? Christine Payson, I see you unmuted yourself, but I don't want to single you out unless you have a separate comment.
Yes, thank you, Christine Payson, for the record. Okay, again, that bullet point was done at the time that the revisions were being suggested. So the 14 grams being a deferral with the prior law being less than 4 grams being low level traffic. And that's not an accurate bullet point anymore, because what actually passed, and to the doctor's question, this is fentanyl and fentanyl analogs. That's what we're talking about in this recommendation. But what was passed is that anything from 100 grams to up to 400 grams is low level trafficking. So less than 100 grams of a fentanyl or fentanyl analog isn't even considered trafficking. So to Lisa Lee's point, if she was using 3 grams a day, you can have up to 100 grams and still not even be considered to be low level trafficking. And this is the current law. So high level trafficking is anything from 400 grams and up. That's a tremendous amount of fentanyl.
Great. Thank you for the point of clarification, Ms. Payson. Before we move on to our next comment, I did want to follow up on a point that Assemblywoman Hardy raised regarding some of the BDRs that are currently available. And I didn't know if there was any staff that could speak to just sort of any of the movement on that piece with it being worked out in the legislative process.
This is Terry Kearns for the record, acting chair. I was asked whether this bill was dropped that was drafted by the Attorney General's office, and I was referenced to Nellis, and it looks like the bill draft request that was drafted out of the Attorney General's office was dropped.
Okay, thank you so much for that information. All right. Next on my list for comment is Debbie Nadler. Debbie, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Okay. So if we're talking about fentanyl here, I know our Attorney General signed on with at least 15 other attorney generals to declare fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. So 2 grams of fentanyl, I said this before and I'll say it again, 1 bomb, 5 bombs, 100 bombs, they're all weapons of mass destruction, whether somebody sets off 1, 5, or 20. I think if we're going to do this justification, we need to specify the word fentanyl in whatever it is that we're drafting, because, and as Lisa referenced, it's constantly changing every day. And unfortunately, and this, I do know something about Snapchat. There are dealers on Snapchat that don't even use, that are targeting our youth right now. I know 3 people personally who've lost their children, who met people, dealers off of Snapchat selling them fentanyl. The justification, the wording, if we're going to do anything about it, it should say fentanyl. That's my opinion. And again, I mean, our Attorney General declared it a weapon of mass destruction. By declaring it a weapon of mass destruction, and I had to ask him before, what does that mean for our state to declare it that? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Nadler. So my understanding is the recommendation out of the response subcommittee is the part in bold at the top, the revised penalties based on the quantity of fentanyl, analogs, or other synthetic drugs of high potency that are trafficked, and that the table below, and correct me if I'm wrong, folks on the response subcommittee, in the justification was some of the evidence that was provided to the response subcommittee to back up, thank you, Ms. Marshall, for putting this on the screen, to back up that recommendation. So that the sort of table itself below is not the recommendation, but it was the justification for moving this forward.
Madam Chair, if I may.
I didn't see the top. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Oh. Go ahead.
Homa Woodrum, for the record, I just wanted to clarify, Senate Bill 35 for the next session, sponsored by the Attorney General's office, does have language posted and establishes a crime of low-level trafficking in fentanyl, mid-level trafficking in fentanyl, and high-level trafficking in fentanyl. That was BDR 40-423. So I just wanted to make sure you had that for the record, that the bill had been, pre-filed and it is available on the legislative website.
Thank you so much. Senate Bill 35, if I heard you correctly, ma'am?
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you.
So Madam Chair, Kelly Marshall, just for a point of clarification.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so I just wanted to note that the recommendations section includes in the body of the report the recommendation, which is what is in bold, and then the justification, the action steps, and the research links. So based on the conversation we've had thus far, there are questions about, do you retain that recommendation? Do you retain the recommendation and revise the justification, or action steps, or make revisions to the research links? All of those points have, I think, been brought up in discussion, or what you do with that recommendation. But I just wanted to be clear that the body of the report would include a justification, an action step, and research links. And at this point, they would include what is listed in this table.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall, for that point of clarification. So a helpful discussion moving forward, I think, might help us to move on those different pieces. I'm going to recognize Assemblywoman Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Just my big overall concern. I would like to see this bullet, justification bullet, second bullet, which is the table, actually removed, because I don't think that it's really necessary to justify what is bolded. And then that one bullet could be the justification of the bolded statement. But I think the table should be removed.
Thank you for that comment. I appreciate that, bringing that to the floor. Next on my list is Eric Schoen and then Christine Payson. Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I find myself deeply conflicted on this one for a few reasons. We know historically how these laws have been unjustly applied, unfairly applied, whatever word you want to use, to people of color, and has caused tremendous harm. So I'm aware of the harm that comes from such laws. On the other hand, I'm also aware of the damage the fentanyl itself can cause, and the public safety approach that we're trying to take from this on this particular drug and its analogs and synthetics. And the other thing that conflicts me on this, so I'd like to see some research that really kind of pushes it one way or the other, that these kinds of laws will actually intuitively, it would seem to make sense. But we know that intuitively doesn't always line up with actual application. And so even the research and links, according to Ms. Lee's review of those, don't support this approach. So if we could hold off on this, or if we could be provided some research and links that really show that this is a good approach, or there isn't a more nuanced way to do this that would result in a better approach, I would really like to see those.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Schoen. So some opportunities for additional information in the research section is what you're looking for to resolve the conflict that you're feeling.
Yeah, I mean, especially because those were put forward, I think, thinking that they were supporting this particular resolution, and that wasn't the case. So if even the research that was purportedly put forward to support is not in support, I'm wondering if there is research that supports this particular approach, or again, if there's a more nuanced approach to try to accomplish that balance between public safety and not harming people in the process of applying basically a drug control law that has, if you use the past as any indication, has been unfairly applied.
Great. Thank you for that information. And next on my list is Christine Payson. Ms. Payson?
Thank you, Christine Payson, for the record. I would agree with the previous comment that table should be removed because, as I pointed out earlier, that's what was proposed, but that's not exactly what was passed. So we should remove those bullets and just make a reference of the law as it currently stands and its potential deadly effects, and perhaps look at the proposed bill draft request take a deeper dive into the way it's currently written. But at the end of the day, you might not find links with data that says this is going to make a difference in overdoses. At the end of the day, sometimes it's simply about holding people accountable. And the amounts of fentanyl that are considered low-level trafficking are so high. These are people making big money. These are not just people who have a substance use disorder. There are people making big money. They know exactly what they're doing, and they know exactly what this substance is. And there needs to be punitive action. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Payson. And I'm hearing you echoing removing the second bullet on the justification as well. Thank you. Debbie, you are next on my list. So Debbie Nadler.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know Eric wanted to see some evidence-based or some things that were done. If you look, and I can't remember, I'm going to say it was in 2020, it was passed. It was the Oregon bill, the Mission 110. And if you look carefully through it, they tried to, you can see everything that they did. And their overdose rates spiked because of what they did, lowering the crime, lowering the amounts allowed, used, giving them a hand slap, $100 fine, because their thought process was, if we find less than 4 grams on them, we'll just give them $100 ticket, or they can choose to see a counselor, hoping that they'd see a counselor and get them into a program and find a bed for them. The problem was there wasn't enough beds and there wasn't enough programs, and it completely failed. It's the Oregon Mission 110, and it's got a lot of this in there if anybody wants to look it up. Eric, if you want to look that up, you can see how that has happened. And I think we need to remove all this.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay.
Sorry, Ms. Stadler. Thank you for your comments. So it sounds like you're in favor of removing that second justification item as well.
Yes.
All right, terrific. Thank you so much. Assemblywoman Hardy?
Thank you. And I would just agree with all the comments that have been made about removing that second bullet point and then moving forward with the recommendation, again, letting it go through the legislative process and then debating the penalties and how we address that specifically. But it seems like that table is causing the most confusion and concern. So I would agree removing that and then moving forward with the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to recognize Dr. Kearns in the room for a comment, and then we have one more person online, and then hopefully we can take some action.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the second research link, Fentanyl Accountability and Prevention, Colorado General Assembly. That's an omnibus bill that has a lot of things in it, but one of the things that it does have is it did pass weighting for fentanyl and fentanyl analogs. So we don't know how successful or not it's been because it just passed. But I did want to highlight that it does have a lot of the things that Lisa does talk about with the Good Samaritan law and Narcan and fentanyl test strips, but it does also have a section on the weighting of fentanyl and sentencing for the weighting of fentanyl.
Thank you, Dr. Kearns, for that additional information. Lisa Lee, the floor is yours. You've been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Lisa Lee for the record. So I just wanted to, agree with Eric. I hate fentanyl. Fentanyl is killing people that I care about. It's now killing kids that grew up with my kids, which is, it's just horrible. So I do want to say that on record. And also, I think that when we're conceiving of things that are punitive in nature, we should also be thinking about what mechanisms do we have in place to keep people alive that are taking these drugs that contain fentanyl that they don't know have fentanyl in them, right? And again, thinking about the efficacy of fentanyl test strips that only check for presence or absence, we have nothing in this state that helps to quantify that. Actually, we do. I think Track B has mass spectrometry that can quantify what are in people's drugs, but that is one program in the entire state. And I know people can mail their drugs to North Carolina with the Drug Users Union and find out what's in them. But again, these technology pieces aren't really available to people who just want to live and keep their friends alive. And so I think when we're talking about this, we should also be thinking in the next year about what can we do to get mass spectrometry into the hands of people, because there's plenty of evidence that indicates that when you see what is in your drugs, it may make you make some different decisions about using them, right? When you're like, wow, there's 30% baby laxatives and 10% shoe polish and enough fentanyl to kill me. I do think that that is going to change people's behaviors and increase motivation to be, more open to treatment and recovery, et cetera. So I agree with taking out the table and pushing forth this recommendation. And also we need to be able to give people at the ground level whose lives are in danger every single time they use the tools to help keep them alive and make different decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. I'm going to close discussion on this item. We've been at it for a few minutes here. I appreciate everyone's really thoughtful comments, questions, and considerations as we think through what this recommendation would look like. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to have had some additional discussion on it. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to move. Hold on, let me time out. I'd like to make a motion to approve recommendation item number 1, revise penalties based on the quantity of fentanyl analogs or other synthetic drugs of high potency that are trafficked, removing the second bullet point under the justification section in how this item is included in the report, as Kelly has indicated on the screen here. Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Do I have anyone who would like to make a motion?
Christine Payson for the record, so move.
I hear Ms. Payson, a motion.
Second.
And a second from Assemblywoman Thomas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay?
Nay.
Sorry, let me do a count. Any abstentions? Sorry. Is that a majority? The motion carries. So the recommendation will move forward in the report, omitting the second justification bullet point. Thank you, everyone, for a thorough discussion on that point. With that, I'd like to move to agenda item number 10, review and consider items for the January meeting. I'll turn this over to Dr. Kearns and Ms. Rodriguez.
Yeah, thank you. So tentatively for January, we have a meeting scheduled January 11th at 2 p.m. And on that, we have to have the final approval of the annual report. And we tabled the review of the amended bylaws. So we will move that to that meeting as well. And then as has been requested for each of our meetings, an update on the opioid litigation settlement funds and distribution. And then because we will have some new members, we have one, at least a couple, and may have some more, an overview of the role and purpose of the SURG, announce the January 2023 SURG appointments or reappointments. We need to designate the subcommittee assignments and chairs for the coming year, and then outline our sample meeting schedule for the SURG and the SURG subcommittees for 2023. And then we need to elect a SURG vice chair, and you may say we already did that in our last meeting. Senator Caesars Ganthert is not going to be able to fulfill that role as we had nominated her and elected her as the vice chair because of her role in the legislature. So she did have to decline that role. So we will have to elect a new vice chair for the SURG. So I would ask any members, if you're interested in this role, please think about that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. The responsibilities are in those bylaws of what the vice chair is responsible for, but I'm happy to go through those with you as well so that we can have the election of a new vice chair at that January meeting. Am I missing anything, Emma?
Thank you. Emma Rodriguez for the record. I wanted to get thoughts on the best way to see if people wanted to switch subcommittees or if people are interested in chairing a subcommittee. Is the best way to provide that feedback either through us distributing a simple survey for you to respond to, or do you just want to, I guess, email me of your interest to switch subcommittees or be on a subcommittee or be a chair? I'm just curious if members have a preference on how to go about that. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. So open for discussion regarding the subcommittees. I see Ms. Lee, your hand is up, and then Debbie.
Thank you, Chair. Lisa Lee for the record. I'm just wondering, because there are so many of us that, including you, Chair Johnson, and myself, that are up for not, our last day is January 1st, 2023. And so I'm wondering, for those of us who are in that liminal space, will we be notified previous to that January 11th meeting, or do we show up? Do we how does that process work, I guess? Thank you.
Thanks for raising that question, Ms. Lee. Dr. Kearns?
As I said, we are finalizing that, but we will be contacting you. Some of you obviously are appointments of the Attorney General. So I have control through the Attorney General's office to reach out to him and get those appointments. But through the legislator, those are the ones that we're really still waiting on. So, so you will be contacted as to your status. Thank you for that.
Thank you. So it sounds like please plan to come. Thank you, Ms. Lee, for your question. Debbie?
I'm sorry. I had a question and I guess it wasn't important enough that I can't remember it right.
No worries. Thank you, Ms. Nadler. To Ms. Rodriguez's question, the last time around we did a survey, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. I think unless there's strong preference from the committee to re-administer the survey, so that you're able to designate folks again and have that clarity within the coming year. I know we're short on time here. I wanted to recognize the comments that were made earlier in the meeting regarding the opportunity for harm reduction recommendations. This is a very full January agenda, but I hear the folks who are here discussing that, and I wanted to ask if it would be appropriate or too many items for a January meeting. This will be the meeting that is prior to the legislative session. So I just wanted to bring that up with respect to the folks who were on the phone earlier talking about harm reduction strategies. Is that something that the committee would like to add as an item for the January meeting? Or an initial discussion for the January meeting? Do we want to elect for presentation at the January meeting? Ms. Cheatham, I see your hand raised.
Yes, no, I think that's a great idea for us to put an initial discussion about harm reduction on for the January meeting. And if possible, I think it would be great if we could have a presentation from someone who is working in harm reduction currently in Nevada, so that we can get some information about the harm reduction needs in the community, similar to what we had for some of the other suggestions and presentations that we had. I know that we have Rick Reich on the phone, that he's listening in as a member of the public from Track B Exchange, but I think he would be a great person to speak about harm reduction.
Thank you, Ms. Cheatham. In the interest of time today, given your role on the SURG with that expertise, would it be appropriate to have Ms. Cheatham work with staff to maybe identify a presenter for the January meeting? Terrific. Thank you. So would that be all right with you, Ms. Cheatham, before I voluntold you?
Yes, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Any other items for number 10? All right, wonderful. We'll move to agenda item number 11, which is our second period of public comment. This shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. And members of the public may comment on any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda at this time. However, no action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item of the agenda until it's been included on the agenda. So we'll begin with the opportunity for public comment here in Las Vegas. Do I have any public comment from here in Las Vegas? Mr. Mandel?
Giuseppe Mandel, Tin High in Turner River, Las Vegas. Thank you guys all for all the work that you do. It's been very informative to be able to sit in and listen and learn from what you guys are doing. A quick thing, a couple comments on the lowering the level, right? Giving us lived experience. I mean, I think the goal overall, for what I'm hearing, is to hopefully kind of win the battles, because there's no winning the actual war. And I think a good way to do that would be increasing the penalties, because what that would do is increase the price of fentanyl on the streets, coming from lived experience. If the price of fentanyl goes up, then some of your low levels aren't able to sell it anymore, that are just doing it for use. And I don't think, I could be wrong on that, but I think that what it's saying is it's not saying what the penalties are going to be. It's saying what they're going to be charged with. And then if they're charged with a low level or high level trafficking, vice versa, then it goes up to the court system where they could qualify for drug court programs, or different harm reduction programs in that area, if I'm hearing that right. If that helps you guys out at all from a street level. I know low level trafficking, I do understand as far as supporting your habit. However, it is so cheap out there right now that's being available. I mean, it's selling for 25 cents a pill out there. That's insane. Increasing penalties will increase the prices, which will in return take off your low level traffickers. Like she was saying, that are using to support their habit. They aren't able to do it as much anymore. And fentanyl test strips, I think, are a big portion. I do consider those harm reduction because, yeah, granted, some of your heroin users or fentanyl users themselves, from my lived experience, they may not test the drugs. However, if I'm a cocaine dealer, right, not that I ever have been, but if I was a cocaine dealer, I'm definitely going to test my supply before I distribute it. Because I don't want my clients dying, not knowing what I have in there, as well as your recreational drug user, which I know sounds bad, but they are out there. I know plenty of them that may not go all the way down to the depths I've done. They will test their drugs of cocaine. I lost a brother to cocaine with trace amounts of fentanyl in it. If a fentanyl test strip was readily available, may he have tested it and not used it? Probably, because he was recreational at that time. There are a lot of recreational drug dealers that I talk to and we give the fentanyl test strip trainings to, that will test their drugs when they go to an EDC event out here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with EDC. They caught a large amount of fentanyl that was supposed to come into the state during EDC. Now, a lot of those people have no interest in using fentanyl and they're only going to party for that weekend. However, if they're able to have those test strips readily available at an EDC concert, they may test their drugs before they party for the weekend. So again, that's harm reduction. That's saving lives. Is it winning the war? No, but it's winning small battles that are in return saving lives here, slowly but surely. So, you know, I don't know if that meant anything to you guys, but I do thank you guys all. And if you guys want to see where some of your money is going, where your recommendations are going, we do have Black Monday coming up, February 13th. That's the largest resource there, I believe, in the state of Nevada. And Keynote speaker, Brandon Novak, and everybody will be there. We encourage everybody outside the recovery community to come to kind of see where you're able to see the results of what you do.
Great.
That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Mandel. Yeah, thank you so much. Any other public comment from Las Vegas? All right, do we have any public comment up in Carson City?
Homa Woodrum, for the record, there's no public comment in Carson City.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Do we have any public comment online? Ms. Nadler, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Debbie Nadler for the record. The only public comment I had to make was I wish somehow we could use some of our resources, some of the money. I think it would be nice to have some kind of memorial bench, statue, garden, some area to remember all those that we have lost to this horrific epidemic. There's a firefighter memorial off of Okie. There's different memorial areas set out, and I just think it would be a good thing for us all to think about, is some kind of memorial statue, garden, tree, bench, anything, just to remember all those we've lost. It's my public comment.
Thank you for your public comment, Ms. Nadler. Any other folks on Zoom? Jill Tolles, you've been recognized. Ms. Tolles. Oh, if you were speaking, you are still muted.
Thank you so much. And I just couldn't resist the opportunity to speak up one last time to just say thank you for all the work and thank you for the discussion. It's not lost on me that it's just this week, the 15-year anniversary of us losing our foster son to an overdose. And I just want to speak his name, that this was in honor of David, and that the work that you're doing, you know, we talk about if it can save one life. And I believe that the work that this committee has done is going to impact, I hope, many, many lives. And I hear the pain of some of my colleagues on this call who are losing people on a regular basis and have also lost to this epidemic. And so I just want to honor those names and those lives too, and honor the work that you've done and are going to continue to do, and know that I am continuing to be here to support you and grateful for all of you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tolles. I appreciate your comment today. Anyone else on the line? Staff?
Yes, we have a Rick Reich.
All right, Mr. Reich, you have been recognized for public comment.
All righty, thank you. This is Rick Reich for the record, Impact Exchange, Las Vegas, Nevada. And I would just like to thank you all for your work, your efforts in terms of dealing with this epidemic. Having spent a long time in public health and currently working in harm reduction, I appreciate your efforts. I also appreciate the efforts to take a look at data and actual working models that have existed or are about to be implemented, such as in Colorado. So with that, I would just like to say that I appreciate your time, your energy, and I know that this is a very dear topic to, I think, every one of you. So, and if I can be of any assistance in the future, I would be more than happy to assist you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Reich. Staff, any additional comments
I do not
on
see
Zoom?
anything. No.
Do we have anybody on the phone for public comment? All right, wonderful. We'll close agenda item number, I want to get it right, 11, and move to adjournment. Thank you all for your time today, robust discussion, and really grateful to serve on this committee with you all. Looking forward to meeting again in January. Happy holidays to all. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Justin.
Happy
Great
holidays.
job.
Thank you.
Jill, my heart goes out to you if you're still on the phone. I'm thinking of you.
Thank you.